Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to head over to America once again, and we're going to have a look at a beer from another brewery that I've never tried anything from before. So for this one we are going to head out towards the west coast to the state of California and the city of Oxnard, which you'll find just a little bit to the northwest of Los Angeles in the kind of southern part of the state if you like. So for this review we're having a look at my first beer from Casa Agria Speciality Ales, to give them their full name, and this beer is called Voices on a Wire. It comes in at 7.1% ABV, and this one is a New England Hazy, however you want to call it, IPA. So yeah, very curious to see how this one turns out, and as I always say to you, it is very nice to try different breweries from the States that we haven't come across before. This is another beer that I picked up from Kiosk over in Copenhagen, where I always go when I take the train over there. Yeah, they get a really random selection of different American beers, and this is one of the ones that they had when I was in there, and it was just a brewery that I hadn't heard of, so I thought, well, why not, as you do. But yeah, this when it comes to picking these beers from the American breweries that I don't know, it really comes down to either the name, the artwork, or just something kind of random that makes me choose that beer from this brewery, because usually they've got two or three from the same brewery. But this one caught my eye for a couple of reasons, and the first thing that came into my mind with this beer was that it had the birds sitting on a wire, and I remember teaching my kids when I used to teach chemistry and physics and maths and stuff, I remember teaching them why the birds like to sit on the wire, and it is just essentially that the resistance from the current passing through the wire generates heat, and they like to sit on the wires and keep their heat warm. That's why birds sit on the telephone and electrical cables and stuff like this. So there you go. But the other thing that I thought was quite funny about this beer was that there was a pigeon on the wire. Now, a big shout out to my friend Craig over at Kent Beer Reviews. Craig's been going through a difficult time personally and stuff. He'll tell you about that in his own time, I'm sure, but I want to dedicate this review to him. But Craig is massively into bird watching, and he loves birds, and there's one of his drunk vlogs that he did from years ago that it still cracks me up to this day, and he's just kind of walking around the town and he starts filming the pigeons, and he goes on about how he would like to come back in the next life as a pigeon. He loves pigeons. So yeah, it's just hilarious. This is just something that came into my head when I saw this beer. So yeah, I want to give a massive shout out and a big hug to Craig for this review. So this one is dedicated to him, and make sure you check out the link to Kent Beer Reviews in the video description below. Craig's got a lovely reviewing style, very relaxed and just very down to earth. I always enjoy listening to Craig's reviews when I'm doing other things. So yeah, go and show Craig some love, and this one is dedicated to him. So yeah, as I say, curious to see how this one turns out. Always nice to try different beers from different breweries in America. We're getting a far greater selection of different beers over here in Europe at the moment, and hopefully this is another very good one. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that hopefully I can do in the future from Casa Agria Speciality Ales, or we'll just call them Casa Agria from now on. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel, of course, has a geography-based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, state, county, province, prefecture, whatever it is you're interested in. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the American beers that I've reviewed for you. That's being added to very regularly these days because we do get a lot of different American beers. And as always, please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, to tell you a little bit about Casa Agria Speciality Ales, then on to my brewery notes. So Casa Agria Speciality Ales, or Casa Agria, are based in Oxnard in California, as I mentioned to you earlier, just to the northwest of Los Angeles in the southern part of the state, and the company was founded back in 2014 by 4 friends. This is Ryan Exline, Mike Veyand, Eric Dew and Tara Half. So apparently Mike and Eric began homebrewing with Mike's uncle back in 2009, and their interest in beer kind of progressed to a fascination with wild, sour and farmhouse ales. But the group felt that barrel-aged wild ales were just something that were in very short supply in their local Ventura County, so they decided that they were going to make their own and start their own company to do so. But today Mike and Eric are the main men behind the brewing. while Ryan and Terry are involved more in the business side of the company, and apparently they all kind of met each other through a local homebrewing group, which is the case with a number of craft breweries in the States and further afield. But they produced their first beers at the Lab Brewing Company in the nearby Agora Hills. And then they opened their own facility in May of 2015, and apparently they funded this by creating a membership scheme. So early on, they had 400 memberships, which sold for about $300, and apparently they sold out within 4 days. So this is a really quite clever and quite unique way of actually funding starting up your own brewery. Actually, I need to read a little bit more about that. But they started off with 84 wine barrels, 3 30-barrel fodders, and then a 15-barrel fermentation tank, and that was how they did it. But one of the main signatures of this brewery is that they create beers using ingredients that are sourced from local farms, namely different fruits, and their location on the outskirts of Oxnard really allows them to do this. But they opened up their tap room at the brewery in early 2016, and over the years they've continued to expand the brewery capacity and infrastructure and create lots of new beers. As of November 2020, when I'm filming this review for you, they've created around 240 different beers, and these days they're also producing non-sour beer styles such as this one. This, like I say, is a New England IPA, but they've got stouts, they've got pilsners and other lagers and things like that in there. But yeah, the main focus of this brewery is the kind of sour beers, and I didn't know that at the time. I can't remember if Kiosk actually had any of their sour beers, but yeah, I picked this one basically because I like the name of it. That's just how it goes sometimes when you're in the beer shops, because I think it was actually all IPAs that they had, because of course everyone, when they're importing all these crazy American beers, they always want the hazy New England IPAs these days. So yeah, this one just kind of caught my eye on that basis. So yeah, the name of this brewery as well translates from Spanish into English as Sour House, which is quite appropriate considering their focus of their brewing. But yeah, they seem to be very, very well respected, and who knows, maybe I can get up to Oxnard sometime and have a little look at the brewery and film an out and about video in the tap room. We'll need to see about that. California is most definitely on the list, and as I said, we will be going to New England next year and doing a little bit of filming and a few interviews and things like that. We'll see about getting that sorted over the next while. But yeah, that's all I can really tell you about Casa Agria Speciality Ales for the moment. If you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can of course check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to learn more about all the different beers that these guys have done. 240 beers over a period of about 5 years is pretty impressive. So yeah, about 50 beers a year, nearly a beer a week that these guys are producing. Sorry about the edit there, guys. Memory card being a pain in the arse once again. I need to figure out what's going on with that one. It's 128 gigs and it still plays silly buggers. But yeah, I'll just let you have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open it up. There you can see the birdies listening to the music, warming their feet on the wire, of course. And you can see there is the Casa Agria Speciality Ales Brewery logo. But yeah, voices on a wire. This one, as I say, I'm not sure what the idea behind naming this one was, if it was just you know, something funny or whatever. But this particular beer, as I said to you at the start of the video, it's 7.1% ABV, and it's hopped with Motueka, Sabro and also Lotus. And Lotus is a new hop to me, so I did a little bit of research on Lotus as well. So this is an American hop that was released in 2019. I got this information from the Hopsteiner website, so probably it is a Hopsteiner hop, I would think. But it's descended from Cascade, Eastern Gold and another American hop. It was USDA something, but it gives between 14 and 17% alpha acid, so it's a bit of a beast, and it's supposed to give you flavours and aromas of orange, berries, tropical fruits and vanilla. So it strikes me as being quite interesting, but this is the very first time I'm coming across Lotus, if memory is serving me correctly. But Motueka we know quite well. That's a lovely big limey hop from New Zealand, and Sabro has that kind of orangey, coconutty type thing going on. Actually, that's another American hop. But yeah, 473ml can, this one American pint. You know, we always make fun of the American measurement system, fluid ounces and quarts and cups and all these kind of things. It makes no sense. As I always say, guys, use the metric system. It just, based on water, it makes just so much more sense. But in fairness, with the American cans, we get an extra 33ml of beer, because these are 473. Our cans here in Europe tend to be 440s, or if you're in Germany or the Netherlands, half litres. So yeah, let's get this guy out then and we'll get on with the tasting. Voices on a wire, IPA, 7.1% ABV. If I can get the thing open And there we go. So let's get this guy out and into the glass, and I'm going to say straight away the aroma coming off of this beer is absolutely lovely. But I do hope that in future I can try a few of the Casa Agria sour beers. That would be awesome, because that seems to be their signature thing. So yeah, and this looks like a lovely beer actually. I think we've got about 2/3 of it in the glass just now, and we'll put the rest of it in a little bit later. But look at the head on that. That head is impressive, and the level of haze on this for a 7.1%er is pretty mental actually. That looks like a lovely beer. So as you can see, this one is poured, about 2/3 of it at least is poured with a frothy, I would say, is that a perfect white head or is it slightly creamy? Somewhere between perfect white and creamy, I guess we could say. But it looks, the beer is poured absolutely beautifully. There's one or two big bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass, but you can see one or two little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there. And in terms of colour, I would describe this beer as being a very kind of rich yellow. This is like a kind of mango juice colour, this one. We always compare the New England hazies to different fruit juices, because I think they just look like this. Every reviewer though has a different frame of reference for reviewing these beers. But yeah, the level of haze on this for a 7.1%er is pretty impressive. If I put my fingers behind the glass, look at that, you can see the level of haze there. It is just a little bit crazy, but yeah, nothing wrong with that. That is what you want from a New England IPA. So yeah, let's have a closer look at the aroma of this one then and see how we got on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance apart from the level of haze. As I've told you before, the thing that kind of determines the level of haze will be the wheat and the oak contents, and as you go up the alcohol scale with these beers, you should theoretically get more haze to them. So yeah, let's see. That smells really nice. If I was blind smelling this, I would think there was Nelson Sauvin in this. It's got that lovely kind of soft fruity juiciness in it. I think this is going to be a pretty special IPA actually. The aroma is certainly lovely. So yeah, let's start with the malty side of it then. Straight away with this one, you get that nice soft white bready base to the beer. That's the backbone of it. On top of that, you can smell there is a little bit of wheaty bitiness towards the back of the nose. It does have a little bit of that almost Trillium-like wheaty bitiness, especially when you take the aroma in a little bit more deeply. Yeah, definitely you get a little bit of the more kind of bitey, wheaty note at the back of the nose there, but a soft white bready base. There's a little bit of there's definitely a bit of that kind of oaty creaminess there in the centre of the nose too, and there's maybe just a little tiny touch of a slightly butter candyish note. But to me, this beer smells a little bit more kind of old school. This is like the kind of New England IPAs we were getting here in Sweden back in, you know, sort of 2015ish. This one does strike me as being more straight up in its malt base, because as I've told you, in the Scandinavian IPAs these days, there seems to be more of that kind of butter candy, Werther's Original type flavour coming into them. They seem to be getting sweeter. Whereas this one strikes me as more old school and straight up wheat, oats and bread, if you like, in the aroma. It really strikes me more like that. But the aroma of this is lovely. One thing I'm going to say as well is you can really smell that vanilla note from the lotus in this. You get, it's like the bread almost just smells as if it's infused with, like, you know, vanilla essence or something like that. That vanilla comes out of this beer, like just really beautifully actually. So yeah, it's strange that, yeah, soft white bread, bit of a bitey wheat, some nice creamy oats further forward on the nose, and then you've just got the vanilla kind of sitting in there from the lotus. It's so weird to have that in an IPA, it's so strange, but it works, it really does work. So yeah, I don't think there's too much more to say about the malty side of this beer, to be honest with you. I really don't know what else we can say about the malty side of the beer. It's very straight up and it's very nicely done, I have to say. So yeah, thumbs up to Casa Agria for this one. But yeah, lovely smelling beer. In terms of the hoppy side of things then, and this is where it's going to get interesting, you do get a little tiny touch of earthiness to the beer, but you know, mainly the green side of the hops in this beer they're very floral, but you've got a nice little bit of a softer kind of grassiness to this one. As I said, when I first went into the aroma there, it really reminded me of Nelson Sauvin. The other hop that it might remind me of a little bit would be Enigma, which is Australian, and it's got a lot of the Nelson Sauvin characteristics to it, but it's got a little bit of a kind of red berryish sort of thing as well. It's a beautiful hop, that If you see Enigma hopped beers, have a go at them. Lovely, lovely hop. But yeah, this one for me, the green side of the beer, nice little bit of a floral backbone to it, a little tiny touch of earthiness, but to me it leans to very much towards that soft, but quite bright and slightly zesty green grassiness actually. That's where the green side of the hops are really coming across in this beer. But yeah, the fruity side of this one is absolutely lovely. Yeah, so straight away with this beer, when you take the aroma in quite deeply, it does have a real kind of citrusy, zesty kind of note to it, a little bit of a... I do get a wee touch of a lemony quality out of this one, which is quite interesting. But yeah, you can smell those bright, zesty, orangey notes in there. I'm not sure whether the Lotus would give you more of a kind of oily, straight up orange, a bit of a kind of juicier tangerine, or whether it would be a very bright, zesty mandarin kind of orange. But you can smell that big orangey note in this one, and that the Sabro is going to contribute to that as well. The Sabro is quite an orangey hop with those kind of almost pina colada, coconutty notes behind it. So yeah, the aroma of this is just really, really interesting. Yeah, fruity notes in there. It's got a big... I think the oranges that are in this one come across as really zesty, and it does give you the impression of a little bit of a slightly almost lemony kind of quality. But behind that, there's some lovely big kind of fruity notes in there. There is a little bit of a kind of... there is a wee bit of a mango, say. Yeah, there is a little bit of a kind of like a soft kind of mango-y, almost slightly apricot-y note in there, so I'm guessing that that would come from the Lotus as well. The other thing that I think starts to come out a little bit more as your nose adjusts to the beer a little bit more, I think the Motueka kind of sits back in this one a little bit, but then as your nose adjusts to it and gets used to the big, you know, zesty qualities of the Lotus, I think the Motueka, you start to notice that slightly more oily, limey character that it presents. Just kind of sitting underneath. So yeah, the oranges, I've always found the orangey and limey notes kind of go together, to be honest, but you can smell the Motueka on the front of the nose once your nose adjusts to the Lotus and the Sabro, and of course you do have that kind of slightly coconutty note, which builds a good bridge with the vanilla side of the Lotus actually in this beer. I can see what they were going for with this, but overall the fruity notes for me, a little bit of a juicy mango, a little bit of a kind of soft apricot, some quite bright, zesty, orangey, mandarin-y type notes, bit of kind of lime from the Motueka underneath, and then you've got a wee bit of an almost lemony zest on the front edge of the nose there. So yeah, it's a really interesting, smelling beer, this one. So definitely take a little bit of time and enjoy that aroma before you get stuck into it. But we're going to have a taste of this one now and see how we get on. So this one is the Voices on a Wire 7.1% New England Hazy IPA from Casa Agria Speciality Ales in Oxnard, just to the northwest of Los Angeles in California. Massive shout out to my good friend Craig once again. This one's for you. Let's get stuck in. Sláinte, skål. Yeah, that's another very, very nice beer. I shouldn't be surprised, you know, considering this beer is from California. To survive as a brewery in California, you've got to be producing some good stuff. But yeah, this is lovely. It's got, I love the malty, the mouthfeel, the malty side of this beer is really nice actually. It's got a lovely, the oats really come out a bit more in this. But this is another lovely, lovely beer. I can see why the guys in Kiosk brought this one over. But again, this is a brewery that I'd never heard of before. So yeah, I wish I could get one of these and send it over to Craig actually, but I think they probably will be sold out of them by now. It's really just luck of the draw when you go over to Kiosk if they've still got the stuff that you want. But yeah, a lovely, lovely beer this. It gets a big thumbs up from me. Let's try and break down the flavour a little bit more then. So yeah, straight away with this beer then you get that lovely, white bready kind of quality, that soft white bready note, that just blankets the middle of your tongue. As you go towards the back third of your palate, you can feel that breadiness just thickens up a little bit, and you start to get the wheaty notes in there. The wheaty notes that you get out of this beer are nowhere near as bitey as you might think from the aroma. It's actually more of a kind of subtle wheatiness that you get from this one, but it works really, really well actually. I think the the way everything goes together in this beer is really damn solid actually. So the malty side of this one for me gets a big thumbs up. As you'll know if you've watched the channel before, being Scottish, I do have a good affinity for the malt, Scottish sweet tooth and all of that. But yeah, you do get a little bit of the wheaty bitiness at the back, but then as you move further forward in that final third of your tongue, you can see that the smoothness of the wheat just comes out a little bit more, and as you move into the middle third of your palate, you can feel the thickness just drops away a little bit, and then you've got that soft white bready layer in the middle of the palate, like I said, and on top of that you get the nice oaty creaminess out of the beer, and it's actually quite a thick and almost like a slightly powdery feeling oaty quality you get in the middle of your palate. That's quite an interesting point about this beer. I do find the oats just a little bit almost drier and powdery in this beer. Yeah, you'll feel that in the middle of your palate there, but then the creaminess, it's almost like in the very centre of your palate it's a little bit dry and almost powdery, but then as you move out towards the edge of the palate in that middle third of your tongue, that's when you get more of the kind of oaty creaminess coming out of the beer. So that's a really interesting point to make about this beer. I think this one is the way that the malt base goes together in this one for me is quite unique, but I really like it. I really do like how that goes together. There is almost, if you move towards the kind of front half of that middle third of your palate as well, you do start to get some of those kind of vanilla notes, which I'm guessing will be coming from the lotus, and you do get a wee bit of the kind of coconutty qualities from the Sabro as well. It's just quite interesting how that matches up with the it's interesting how that matches up with the it's interesting how it just matches up with the kind of malty side of the beer actually, yeah. So on the hoppy side of things then, back corners of the palate you've got a little bit of earthiness there. As you move further forward you can feel the nice floral aromaticity coming out of this beer. I wouldn't describe this one, how do you say, it does have a little bit of a kind of spiciness to it, but it's not overly spicy, if that makes sense. Yeah, it does have just a little bit of it does have just a little bit of that spiciness to it, but it's more floral and aromatic and quite bright, to be honest with you. But then round the front curve of the palate, the beer is distinctly more kind of light and grassy actually. So I like how that goes together in this one. So yeah. The grassiness in this beer I do quite like. I like the fact that this beer has a little bit of a zesty kind of edge to it, just to kind of balance out the smoothness of everything else. But on the fruity side of things, what we're going to say about this is, I always say the fruity side of the beer comes out in that front third of your palate. You get that nice oily bubble where those fruity, juicy esters just roll their way out of the beer. And for me, the fruity side of this one, I think, yeah, when you go towards the very back of that front third of your palate, you do get a tiny little touch of a slightly stronger passion fruit, but then as you move further forward, you start to get a kind of mango-y note and almost a little bit of that apricot-y softness. But then on the front half of that front third of your tongue, that's when you get the more kind of citrusy notes out of the beer. So you get that lovely, quite bright mandarin-y, zesty orange, both from the lotus and from the Sabro, I would think. And underneath that, as I say, when you progress further into the aftertaste, you will get a little bit more of the oily, kind of limey notes from the Motueka. You can feel the Motueka just a little bit further towards the front of the palate, and then you get those kind of, you do get a little bit of a more lemony, grassy, zesty sort of thing there, which I think is very nice too. So yeah, it's a really interesting flavour combination, this one. The berries, did we get any of the berries? That's the other thing they said with the lotus. You know, in fairness, there is a little bit of an almost like a kind of candied. If you focus on that middle, on the middle of that front third of your palate, you do, just when you kind of progress into the aftertaste, you do get just a little bit of a lingering sort of, it's almost a little bit, it's almost like a very slightly figgy, blackcurranty kind of thing. There is just a little touch of a berry note to this one. It could well be the power of suggestion that's making me search for that flavour right enough, but I do get just a little bit of that. out of this beer. So yeah, the Lotus. This seems like it's going to be a really interesting hop, and the thing that really lingers into the aftertaste with this beer, some of the oatiness is there, a bit of the wheaty bitiness, but you really do get a vanilla note from the Lotus and a kind of coconutty note from the Sabro in this one. They really contribute to the aftertaste in this beer, and I think the soft grassiness kind of lingers there as well, and some of the nice fruity characters as well. So I mean, this beer is it's a really interesting one, to be honest with you. I've really enjoyed this, and I love trying beers when it's new hops that you can learn a little bit from. That's what me starting this channel was all about. I wanted to kind of learn about all these different beers over the years, and you're always learning about new hops and new malts and things like this, and I think this one has been really interesting in that sense. But it gets a big thumbs up from me. This is a lovely IPA, I have to say, so I'm definitely curious to try a few more things from Casa Agria at some point as well, and try a few of their sour beers. I'd love to try some of their signature sours actually, but we'll need to see if that's possible. So yeah, in terms of the mouthfeel then, I would describe this beer as being, it's kind of bottom end of full bodied for me. It kind of sits around there. But this is, I would actually go as far as saying this is one of the thicker New England IPAs I've had from the States. And as I've told you in previous videos, I do find that the American beers are a bit lighter in their mouthfeels than the Scandinavian ones. I think I've never found anywhere that's had beers as thick as we get here in Scandinavia. And even with the kind of clean water, the really clean feeling water that we have back home in Scotland and here in Scandinavia, Norway, Sweden, I guess Denmark as well to a degree. I've just never found the American beers for me always come across as a bit lighter, and I would guess that that's just down to temperature. America's a far more it's a far hotter place than Europe, than Northern Europe is. But yeah, this is definitely one of the thicker IPAs that I've come across from the States, and it's especially interesting considering it's 7.1%. So I'd love to see what a double IPA from these guys, or even a triple IPA would turn out like. I'd love to kind of to feel what kind of thickness you get out of that, because this, for a 7.1%er, I find this one to be really quite thick actually, maybe even thicker than some of the Scandinavian ones I've had, come to think of it. But yeah, in terms of the I would say quite a bottom end of full bodied beer. This one, smooth carbonation, very thick, and almost quite a creamy IPA. This, in terms of hoppy bitterness, you're not talking a lot of IBUs with this beer. This is your standard 25-30, which is what you expect for a hazy IPA. Malt base, like I say, has a lovely smoothness to it, a little bit of bitiness from the wheat, but mainly a kind of smooth, kind of almost creamy note, and you've got some really nice juicy, and they become a little bit more oily, the fruity flavours in this one. I think those are quite nice, and there is a wee bit of sweetness from the hops as well with those vanilla and coconutty flavours. So yeah, for me this is a very, very interesting beer, and I think it was really cool to be able to review this one for you here on the channel. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. So yeah, this one was the Voices on a Wire 7.1% New England Hazy IPA from Casa Agria in Oxnard to the northwest of Los Angeles in California. Always cool to introduce new American breweries to you on the channel, and this one is a beer that I've really enjoyed. This could well be the thickest IPA relative to the ABV that I've had from the States so far, so that's something I'll need to keep in mind about this brewery. So yeah, thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Casa Agria. Hopefully, as I say, we can get back to these guys and try a few of the sour beers. I would love to have a go at some of those. Be getting very into my sours recently, thanks to one of my subscribers who's been sending me the Belgian lambics. And yeah, this one was really cool actually. So let me know the best beers to try from these guys. Let me know other beers and brews that I should try, and if you have come across other beers with Lotus in it or other interesting hops, let me know about that. Just comment and have a chat. It's always good to learn from you guys about different beers. You guys are one of the best sources of information when it comes to craft beer. But yeah, thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Voices on a Wire 7.1% New England Hazy IPA from Casa Agria Speciality Ales in Oxnard, California, over in America. Slàinte, skull, cheers, I'll catch you guys on the next one.